episode 10. So obviously you will have watched all of the 9 other episodes. I mean, that'd be pretty embarrassing if you haven't.
You need to do it right now. Go back and binge watch. The bloody great.
Or you may be listening to it because you can listen on any sort of podcast platform.
I watch. I don't have a podcast. Like I prefer to watch stuff. And actually, it was funny because you were saying your friend, she likes to see what we're wearing.
Yeah.
Not making extra effort this week.
Yeah. Yes, I always like to try and think, what we're going to wear. It's quite exciting. So stay tuned to the end because we always like to share what our favourite things we'd like to recommend are. And today we are talking about ashwagandha and the idea of adaptogens. And this was brand new for me. So I've done quite a bit of reading, but I didn't know anything about it. So do you know anything about ashwagandha?
No. So I know, when I say I know, I was recommended to have ashwagandha in my coffee. It's like a sort of a beige kind of powder, isn't it? Or it can come in a beige powder. I'll be honest, it did not taste great at all.
Well, interestingly, the name comes from Sanskrit and means horse smell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it did taste like a horse would smell. So that makes sense.
It may not be delicious.
Although we do have horses that live near us. So part of me is like, is it this ashwagandha or is it the actual horse?
And so did it help you with anything?
I don't really know, I think, I can't say a definite yes, but I can't say a definite no. Although I do have MCT in my coffee. And when I miss having it in my coffee, I do feel like that. I do feel like I'm missing I don't feel as awake, but MCT is not ashwagandha, so I've gone off on a tangent there.
No, actually, I do need to think about that. I know one of my other friends has it every day in her coffee, and but I don't really know much about that, actually.
Yeah, no, I don't. I just been someone who I trust told me I should have it in my coffee, and I have it. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what this does. But
would you like to know more about MCT, or we can cover that in another episode another time if you want? And I'd never heard of the term adaptogen.
I'd kind of heard of adaptogen, but I don't really know what they are. So it's just kind of like things that make you feel better, right? Or like help your cells, help your body.
So the idea is it helps you adapt to stress better.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And these are like plant-based things. So I think theoretically they're often plants that have kind of survived in tricky places. So they are already kind of adapted to environmental stress.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So actually you mentioned that you have the mushroom powder, the lion's mane.
Yeah.
So this is also an adaptogen.
Yes.
As is reishi, rhodiola and ginseng.
Okay, so I have all of that I did have all of that in a powder, which again, I would put that in my coffee as well, but then the powder ran out and then I've not bought any more. But I can't say I've really noticed a difference.
No. So theoretically, it improves your resilience to physical, biological and chemical stresses. But the term adaptogen is certainly not anything recognised in pharmacology. It's not something in medicine we know about. So it's essentially kind of a made-up term.
Is it? So do you know much about Ayurvedic medicine?
Well, it is an Ayurvedic medicine. So it has been used for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about, no.
Yeah, no, me neither. I just know that Ayurvedic medicine, it's all kind of to do with this kind of, I don't really know. I think it's to do with this kind of stuff, but I started to look at Ayurvedic medicine. I don't know where I'm going with this, Sophie.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to come back to this because there are some downsides to using Ayurvedic medicine.
Oh, see. Go on.
Shall I tell you now?
Yeah, go for it.
Jump straight in?
Yeah.
Well.
I'm probably going to cry now because I love anything alternative and holistic.
Well, people think herbal plant medicine is safe, certainly safer than something that like I might prescribe for you as a doctor.
I'm one of those people.
Well, I would tend to disagree with that because well, there was a study done looking at different sorts of Ayurvedic medicine.
Yeah.
And they found that 56% of them didn't have any of the concentration of stuff that they said they would. But 20 to 65% of them did contain mercury, lead and arsenic, far exceeding the daily kind of maximum dose you're allowed, sometimes thousands of times.
So is this
higher.
so this study then, was that done from, like I'm assuming a brand that had Ayurvedic medicine, right? So again, with quantities of stuff, it's all to do, if it doesn't have the quantity, would that not be to do with that specific brand rather than the actual Ayurvedic medicine? Does that make sense?
Well, I think they looked at all sorts of different brands.
Okay.
Because the difficulty is...
Or if you had, what I'm saying is, if you had the quantity needed, so they're lacking the quantity that they're saying is enough to give you actual benefits. But we
just don't... The problem is, you see, with all of these things, because there isn't a set quantity, a set concentration, a set dose, when we have a new drug come on the market, it has to be we know exactly the quantity, the concentration, the dose, and then we test it and we know whether it's safe or not safe, or did it work or not work? Do we need to increase the dose? With herbal medicines, plant-based medicines, because you don't have those studies. In fact, herbal supplements are treated as a kind of foodstuff. So they don't have to be approved by the FDA before they're released. So there's no safety testing needs to happen. And actually people often think, oh, it's just, there's no money to be made out of plant medicine. So it's not like big pharma. So no one will tell you the benefits of X because, it's just about money. But I think is a very interesting fact. What do you think is worth? What do you think is worth more, the pharmaceutical industry or the wellness industry?
Well, I know this because you've told me this. And so it is the wellness industry. However, what I would say is if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, there's what, like maybe 4 or 5 actual key players. So the market share is going to 5 big companies. Whereas if you look at the wellbeing industry, there's lots of different players. So there's different market shares. But when I look at it, because I don't take medicine. like touch wood. I'm fortunate to be healthy or
do you mean like prescribed medicine?
Prescribed medicine, yeah, or prescriptions, or like if I ever start to feel like I'm getting a flu or a cold, I'll just like take loads of vitamin C. Like I'll do something called a vitamin C flush, where literally you take vitamin C till you literally shit yourself. Yeah. Which Sophie's face is saying you should not be doing that. The GP's
well, because this is actually one of the tactics that the supplement companies use. The idea that more is better.
No. So this was one of my friends. She recommended to do this, but actually one thing I will say is when I've gone through that circle, or even when I start to take more vitamin C, if I feel any sort of flu symptoms coming on or any sort of cold, I'll maybe take 5-6 grams of vitamin C in the evening, go to sleep, and I'll wake up and I feel absolutely fine. But also I think for me, when I look at the food that I eat and everything, it makes sense that if I eat food that is wholesome, that is nutrient dense, I'm going to feel better. So if I'm poorly, if I take supplements, or if I take more of a holistic style, that makes more sense to me rather than to take something that is prescribed because it's gone through more of a process with different toxins. But also going back to it, with the wellbeing industry, if you look at places like Holland and Barrett, a lot of the stuff they actually supply in Holland and Barrett, they are pumped with like fillers, in the sense of, so you'll be taking something, but there's a lot of filler in there, like mercury, and there's only a small dosage of the actual thing that you think you are buying. So when people are looking at the ingredients, they think that they're taking a supplement which is going to like make them healthy, whereas actually there's a lot of additives and fillers within that supplement.
That's absolutely right. In 2015, there was a big study done. And they looked at all the supermarket supplements. And
this is really
4
bad.
out of 5 of them had none. Of the product in them. They're just filled with all sorts. And the thing is, what are they filled with? So you mentioned toxins from pharmaceutical medicines, but at least we know what those are.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the thousands of times additional lead, arsenic, and mercury, or who knows what in these other things.
So then, what my argument would be is debatey. What my argument would be is the actual Ayurvedic medicine and the actual adaptogen, I would imagine is great for you. However, the brands that are selling the adaptogen, because they are adding things in there which aren't great for your health, that's where the studies and everything gets skewed, because they're creating studies on something which isn't the Ayurvedic medicine.
Yes. And actually they did also, in one of the studies I was looking at, they looked at really expensive supplements and they still found the same problem. So you can't just throw money at the problem.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about ashwagandha is that the reason it has an impact on you. So basically, it's almost like considered to be a natural alternative to SSRIs, which we talked about previously, antidepressants. Because it's thought to decrease your cortisol. It mimics something called GABA, which is often used in anti-anxiety medications like benzodiazepines. Increases your serotonin, and it's thought to decrease brain inflammation. But this happens because of these bioactive compounds. So this includes things called
I love when you talk science to me, baby.
Alkaloids, flavonoids. So these phytoactive chemicals. But these are categories of bioactive compounds. And so just
break it down. So for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, I personally don't want a bioactive. So what is that for anyone listening?
So that is almost like where the drug effect comes from. So we know that these are kind of psychoactive compounds that can have an effect on you.
Okay.
But there's so many different compounds in there. We don't know. Is it the flavonoids that have this effect? Is it the withanoids? And if it is, that's still a category of itself.
So is this everything which is in the ashwagandha?
Ashwagandha.
Yeah.
This is because it comes from, so ashwagandha is an evergreen shrub and it's the root that we take, and it's a native to tropical areas.
Okay.
So it's the root. So what we also don't know is if that's grown if this area, is that going to be the same as the plant that's grown there? Because it's not grown in controlled
Yeah, I get you.
environments.
So, and also it depends on what it's being grown in, because a lot of the soil, that's where we get our nutrients through our veg.
Yeah. So essentially that could completely affect these bioactive compounds.
Yeah, I get
So
you.
the difficulty is, even if you're buying expensive stuff or whatever, you still don't know.
Yeah.
And therefore, when it's still not sure what dose you need, what amount you need,
Yeah.
what the plant growing conditions. So therefore, when it comes to studies, it's really low evidence, because what we look for when we look to provide evidence is lots of studies showing the same, finding the same results, testing the same amount of things. So it's difficult to say for sure whether ashwagandha does help with kind of depression or anxiety, because of
you can't measure it.
Yeah, because you can't measure it.
I would like to say yes. That's really interesting, that. And I think it's, because they just, I totally get what you mean, because they can't measure it. But it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. So if we look back to when Ayurvedic medicine first came around, which was, do you know, I actually don't know how many years. Is it 4,000 years? Have I just made that up?
Long time.
A long time, a few thousand years ago. Whereas actually, so I hang on, let me rephrase this. I truly believe in the old styles of medicine, the traditional medicines, and I truly believe that Mother Earth, she supplies everything in which we need, because again, she's like innately intelligent. So when Ayurvedic medicine, people would literally go to the huts within tribes and they would be given like the Ayurvedic medicine, right? So again, for me, if we look at that, it would have had the healing properties because it was in its most natural form, wherever it was grown, because the soil wouldn't have really have been malnutritioned. Am I making sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, malnutritioned. So I would imagine that actually, as an adaptogen. Thank you. I can't pronounce that bloody word. I would imagine it would work. However, the brands that are doing it now, they're putting stuff in there, so you just don't have the dosage or what you need. Yeah.
But actually, if you do have good old ashwagandha, you can cause liver failure.
Why?
So there are, especially in India where it's used quite a lot, there's quite a lot of people who die from liver failure from having too much ashwagandha.
May take it out of my coffee now.
Or who require a liver transplant.
Wow.
So that's the thing you see.
But do you think, just to go back to that, do you think then that is because of the ashwagandha, or like we've mentioned, the additives and the fillers?
Ashwagandha.
Oh, right.
It's thought to be the
so is that a bit, but is it thought to be, or is it?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But it's people taking ashwagandha.
But is it because of the so do you get me? So at the moment we know
I think it might be because of the bioactive compounds within ashwagandha.
Right.
Is what I'm led to believe.
Yeah. But why? Do you get me? Like, what is it within the bioactive compounds that affects the liver?
Well, we don't know, but I suppose I don't know, but I suspect it's because people taking all sorts of different types of ashwagandha still can have liver failure. I don't know.
My brain.
Don't ask too many tricky questions, Jess.
That's what I'm here for. Okay, cool. So what about what other up to? Oh my God, I cannot pronounce the bloody, what is going on with my brain? Adaptogens.
Rhodiola, ginseng, and then the different mushrooms. But yeah, the problem is I can't recommend them because we don't know the evidence. So people might want to try them, and that's fine. And I understand why, like we've talked about before. Prescribed medicine isn't great either. Oh, what I would say about prescribed medicine is that a lot of it is still based on plant medicine. Like aspirin it comes from like the bark of a willow tree.
But with the processes it goes in, it's not like having the bark of a willow tree.
No, but all it means is then we've tested the efficacy of that. But lots of medicines do come from plants, like digoxin, digitalis, So the idea that big pharma would never use plants isn't true.
No, I believe they would, but I think, is it not all the process that it's gone through?
What to do what though? Why would they? But the only process it goes through is then tested to
I
make sure it's
don't
safe.
like chemicals in my body, I'll be honest.
But
although I do like wine and champagne.
A chemical. Yeah. Everything is a chemical. Oxygen's a chemical. Water's a chemical. Everything is a chemical.
Yeah. Okay, it's pressing my brain now. Move on, let's talk about my poor finger.
Yeah, tell us about your finger.
Oh my God, right. So for anybody who is watching this on YouTube, just literally look at my finger, right? You can't see it now. Oh my God.
And she's been desperate to tell me about her finger, and I keep saying, is it a funny story? Tell me on the podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
So I do not know what's happened to your finger.
I can't even get my nails done. So like I'm going to get my nails done next week before I speak at this gig. But they just look terrible. But oh my God. So you know that I love anything sort of like with science, spirituality, anything like that. And actually I did a little Instagram video the other day. We can find meaning in anything because everything comes from our subconscious programming, right? So because subconsciously we know what we need to overcome, we know what we need to heal, we know what we need to come to thrive. when we see something, we can attach a meaning to it because it's all coming from our subconscious, yeah? But I also believe that spiritually, we are guided to things to allow things to happen for us or to us for us to grow from. So talk about my finger. I've basically set this huge goal for work, a goal that it would be so cool if I hit it, and I'd love to hit it. Anyway, so I've been doing 30 days of belief coding, and what belief coding does, it allows me to remove any resistance which stops me from taking action to reach my goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So every time we set a goal, if you're not in alignment to it, you'll have like things like anxiety come up, intrusive thoughts, panic, fear, all of this stuff to stop you from going after your goal, because your subconscious doesn't know if when you reach that goal, you'll live or survive on a really literal base. So set this huge goal, doing belief coding, and where we live, there's loads of like really crazy country lanes, isn't there? So I've picked all the kids up from school and nursery. I've got all the kids in the car, bar Digby. I'm driving up this country lane, which is super narrow, and this car's coming down, but there is a sign in the road, which is an obstacle stopping me from reaching my destination. So already I'm attaching meaning to this. So I was like, right, I'm going to get out of the car, move this sign out of the way. When I'm doing this, I'm not attaching this meaning, but after I've done my
Hang on,
finger...
was the sign telling you not to drive up the road and you were just like, screw that?
So it was kind of what was going, there was some building works, but basically like the lady moved a sign from her side and I moved it. So moving the sign up allowed my car to go further up, which gave enough space for both cars. And it's only after having this epiphany has only come after I've done my finger in. So I've got out of the car to move this sign. As I've shut the door, I've slammed my car door on my finger. Now I have a big car with big heavy doors. I was like, and do you know when you're holding back the tears, I felt physically sick. Moved this side, and the woman's like, oh, I've just seen what's happened. Are you all right? I'm like, oh. She's like, oh, I feel really bad now. And she didn't move. I was like, I just want to cry, and she's talking to me. I was like, it's okay. I said, don't worry. I got back into the car, and oh my God, like literally, I just started to bawl my eyes out, scream, cry. But the interesting thing, it didn't feel like physically painful. The pain of the screams was grief, was sadness, it was shame, it was judgment. All of these emotions were coming out in pain that was attached to my finger, right? So I'm kind of going, doing all of these cries. The girl's like, are you okay, Mum? Is that right, Mum? So I was like, it's okay, it looks a lot, but it's emotional pain coming up. And then Dudley's like, are you pretending, Mummy? I was like, oh. Managed to compose myself, drove home, and I kept going into these like fits of tears and then laughter, just all of this like raw emotion coming up. Got home and I was like, right, I just need 5 minutes in the car. And they call it sacred rage because as a woman, we're taught to be the good girl, or we're taught not to show our emotions, not to show rage. Because if you show rage, you're unhinged or you're unbalanced.
Yeah, hysterical.
Hysterical,
the word of the, meaning the womb.
Yeah, but actually, it's womb. So sacred rage comes from the womb space, and it's there to allow you to express. So the kids are in the house now, and all of this, like these words are coming out, was connected to sexual abuse. And I was like, how dare you do this? How dare you do this to me? But these words were just coming out. I'm not rationally thinking of anything, but words are coming out, screams are coming out, really primitive rage was coming out. And me and Alex, we'd fallen out the day before and we still weren't speaking. And then Alex comes out and I was like, oh my God, he's coming out, just don't see me. And then he opened the door and he gave me a hug. But I allowed, and usually I'd push him away and I was like, oh. But as he's giving me this hug, this like my finger, I tuned into my finger and I was like, right, how does my finger feel? And it felt numb. So I went with that. So when we feel physical pain, if we ask the physical pain, okay, what meaning is this? The meaning was it's numb. Okay, where else do I feel numb? And I felt numb, like with relationships, and it connected back to sexual abuse. So then all of a sudden, these tears come, and then it was like, how dare you do this to me? How dare you do this to me? And then the words, but I forgive you, came out, and then, but I forgive you. And on the third time I said it, everything just went. Like literally the pain just stopped. And like it was as if a huge weight had been lifted. It was crazy. So that's my story about my finger.
Okay. I actually love that because I think that, like you say, we're taught to keep it in. And so actually the benefits of just blooming let it out.
But it was real kind of like, when you had, it wasn't like a good cry. It was deep rooted stuff that I've held on to from being 4 years old coming out.
Yeah.
And honestly, like when we hold on to stuff subconsciously or consciously, it takes up a lot of energy. So as soon as you let it go, you can feel really tired. You can feel quite fatigued. And that's exactly how I felt. I literally, like I came out the car about 6:30. I was like, I need to go to bed now, because I'd held on to that for so long. And since that, I literally feel, even though this podcast probably sounds like I sound quite unhinged, I literally feel the most grounded that I've felt in a long time, and kind of like really focused and dedicated in. I'm in the middle now of doing a huge launch for work, spending a lot of money. And when I was in the same position like last year, I had a lot of fear coming up, whereas now I've still got fear coming up and still like the what ifs, but I'm able to add a rational perspective to it, rather than allowing my emotional perspective to run away with me.
So how can people tap into this without having to trap their finger in the paddle?
Belief coding and breath work.
Coding and breath
It's
work.
actually interesting you ask me that, because I've never experienced anything like that unless I've done a belief coding session and breath work. And interestingly, two of my facilitators, Kim and Gemma, they gave me a belief coding session about 6 months ago, and it was a very similar experience. So when I've gone through this process of trapping my finger, that's triggered a neural pathway attached to pain, numbness, and all of this, which is why everything's come up. But it was really like, it was, I think sometimes as well, when we cry, we're taught not to cry. And the reason we're taught not to cry is not because it's a bad thing, but because other people feel uncomfortable. So when Alex came out to give me a hug, for me, I know that this is a huge release. So already I know that actually, if I'm crying this, I just need to allow this process and this cycle that is not been finished to finish. Whereas from Alex coming out, he didn't know what to do, because I like how it was deep stuff. And I could tell he felt uncomfortable with all of this. So again, and even as parents, like before getting into this kind of work, if the kids had cried, like, oh, it's okay, don't cry, don't be daft, because that's what we do. We don't want our children to cry because we know they're going through pain. Whereas actually, by honouring the way they feel, like, oh, it's okay to worry, it's okay to cry, get it all out, that allows them to finish that cycle and allows them to know that actually, if I cry, this is me finishing an emotional cycle. I mean, don't get me wrong, when Dudley cries, Jesus, sometimes I'm definitely bribing him. Like, if you don't cry, I'll give you a Kinder egg. Because I'm like, I can't cope with the twitching. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know I've got a tool to help them. But actually, like, allowing that to come out, allowing that rage or that sacred rage, it felt really empowering. And really like, I can breathe.
Yeah. I've heard about going back to with kids, because I definitely do the thing where you go, up you get, you're all right, you're fine, up you get, which actually then doesn't allow them to acknowledge their own pain. Yeah. So it's like, push that pain deep down inside somewhere.
And then you try your finger on a door and it all comes out.
So actually you're meant to kind of be like, oh, that does look like it hurts. How are you? You okay? Do you want a cuddle? And then, but I'm just mega impatient. And I'm always like, so now I'm like trying to do it. Are you okay? Good. Can we move on?
Oh no, honestly, my girls, like, so I've had, there is a fine art in this, because again, when our children cry, it naturally will trigger stuff within us, because we weren't allowed to cry growing up. So because we weren't allowed to cry, or our parents like, just get up, you're all right. When we see our children cry, it triggers that unhealed wound. So even now, like, there was a joke in my house before going to belief coding, like, oh, here we are, unsympathetic mum. Because if the kids were pulled up, I said, you're all right, you're fine, just go to bed, it's fine. Or Alex, like, when Alex had man flu, I was like, oh, he's bloody poorly, isn't he?
I am the most, because as a doctor as well, I'm the most unsympathetic person to be around. I'm really nice to my patients.
Yeah.
But where Paul or the kids, I'm like, oh, you're fine. I have no sympathy. But because I think it's tricky. We're always walking the path of blooming parenthood, which is hard. Because
really
you're like,
hard.
I want them to grow up to be resilient.
Yeah.
And resilience is so important in a modern world. So that's what partly I'm thinking, well, I don't want to like make a huge big thing out of a small scrape on the knee, because then they'll be like, oh, I don't know how to, So I think it's a tricky balance.
Yeah, I think it is. Like, even if they fall off, even gosh, it's really bad about little Hattie. She's so cute and she's so gorgeous, but like, she will fall to get attention. So again, it's that fine balance of like, oh, she obviously needs my attention here because she's fallen.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, Hattie, so I'll actually say like, Hattie, it looks all right to me. And the good thing is you've got up. So because you've got up and acknowledging that maybe it's not that painful, but I understand that maybe you might just want a hug from her and attention. But even that, like, and I can tell like it triggers me in the sense of, because I was never allowed that. So then I find like me being unauthentic and I'm like, oh, it's okay, just give me a hug. But really I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you have to override your own thing.
Yeah.
But I think that brings up another point. we've totally veered off ashwagandha here, but it's all very interesting.
I think it's very relevant though.
Is about
I might give the kids the ashwagandha.
maybe that'll sort it out. Is about kind of, because I dealing with a lot of teen anxiety and things now, and a lot of people saying like, oh, I think she's just after, you think she's only doing it for attention, kind of thing, as if that somehow means that it should be ignored. When actually the point is, if they're doing something for attention, they need attention.
Yeah, and that is what triggers anxiety and depression. It's funny actually. So with so the neuroscientist that we've been working with to do the EEG trials on belief coding, he was saying that a lot of teenagers who suffer with depression, number one, they probably don't have depression, but they're just lacking the attention. And then because it makes them feel a certain way, then they start to say, I have anxiety. Then they start to say, I have depression. And you know yourself, like we can literally rewire our brains to believe something. So the more they say, I have depression, the more the depression will actually come on. Whereas actually they probably, and also as well, like now, even with phones, like we're in a world where everything is on the phone, like the phone gives the dopamine hit because, we see lots of positive things on phones. And then, even myself, like I've had to get 2 phones. So my work phone, I try and leave at work, and then I've just got my personal one, which has no apps on, just so I can be more present with the kids. But I find myself, like when I've got a busy week or a busy month, I find myself slipping back into old patterns. And then it's when the kids like, Mum, you're on your phone. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it down. And I think it's that acknowledgement, if they ask for your attention, whether it's like, Mum, you're on your phone, they want their attention. Mum, will you just listen? And if you listen, they need the attention. So I think if you acknowledge, well, this is what I've done anyway, just my own, acknowledge that, sorry, you need this. What do you need? Or do you know what I remember reading actually? The best thing that you can say to your kids, do you know when they're going through something? Sometimes we want to be fixer, don't we?
Yeah.
Whereas if you say to them, yeah, I do that, I try and fix it. Whereas actually if you say, okay, so what do you need me to do? Do you need me to help you? Do you need me to listen? Or do you need me to do something?
Yes.
And it gives them that choice. And actually, since saying that, and I've been saying that for about 2 years, it's interesting when sometimes I think, oh, they need me to fix this. Whereas like, I just need you to listen and be on my side. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think for me, that's something I have learned I need to practice with friends as well. If someone's telling me something, I want to solve it. All right, what solutions have we got here? And it's like, you don't always need, that's not what they needed. They just needed to listen.
You've just realised I definitely try to fix a problem. Like with like my clients, with friends, whereas it's only my children. I'm like, okay, so do you need me to fix? Do you need me to help you? Like, do you need me to listen, or do you need me to do something?
Yeah.
I need to practice that. Why? Just give me an epiphany.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great bit to end on. So we need to listen, give attention where attention's due.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I think also acknowledging ourselves. We're working, we're mothers.
Yeah.
We feel like parenting used to be easier. I'm sure our parents had it easier. Now
that's because they're like, shut up and get up.
Yeah. It's very hard to get everything right. So I think acknowledging we can't get everything right. We're just all doing our best.
Yeah.
And go with what works for you and your family.
That's totally, because that's the thing. Like, there's a great saying, isn't there? We do our best until we know better, and then we do better. And that's generally, and don't get me wrong, like it's great to say that. Sometimes I know better and I still don't do my best, but I try. And I think that's like, if you're always trying and like owning up to stuff that, like, so when me and Alex actually talk about this. So I'm a great believer in, if I'm stressed and I take that out on the family or the kids, that's a me problem. So I have to say, look, I'm sorry, I react like this because I'm stressed. And that's so important. Well, in my opinion anyway, it's so important, because then they know that, oh, actually, there's nothing wrong with me. I didn't do anything. It's a reaction. Whereas growing up, my mum and dad, well, not so much my dad actually, but my mum, man, she was always stressy. I remember thinking that she didn't like me for most of my life. Whereas in hindsight, having kids, you understand that, oh, my mum did love me. She was just stressed all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's also nice to show children that we're not perfect, but also show them how we manage that. So sometimes if I have done something wrong or shouted at the kids or something, then I will try and say, do you know what? I'm really sorry. That was wrong of me to do that.
Yeah.
Because actually teaching them, we're not perfect, but look how apologising can help.
And also, like, people make mistakes. Like, when you make a mistake, and I think this is one of my tricks, I need to work on this, but I would say I'm good at taking responsibility for my emotions and for admitting it. And if I've done something, I'm like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, this is a me problem. Whereas, like, when mentioning no names, but I definitely live with them. Like, when someone doesn't take responsibility for their actions, or like, that is, I think, no. Like, especially like when you're in the authoritative position, when you're trying to teach and educate, your kids have also got to know, if you make a mistake, if you own up to it, that's cool. But if you don't, like, what, totally veered off there. Anyway, back to the adaptogens.
Well, it sounds like all parents need some sort of stress help, so maybe we should all be doing it.
Yeah.
So just rounding up, adaptogens, ashwagandha,
And trap fingers.
And trap fingers, yeah. Try it if you like, maybe not the trap finger.
Yeah. Oh, let me show you this though. So, Sophie, should we share our products that we love?
Yeah, what have you got this week?
Okay, so
I like the look of it already.
Oh, it's amazing. So it's by Sophie's Skin. Always looks amazing. It always looks so glowy, and I love that. Do you when you look quite glowy and radiant?
I love a bit of glow and dewy.
You feel really young and fresh.
Because as you
don't
get older, you do get a bit less dewy and dry. I don't know.
So you look really dewy. But it's my blusher. It's the Pat McGrath one.
I was admiring your dewy blush.
It's peach lotus, but look, it's so you can put some on, and then like it on my lips.
Well, you see, as you get older, I love a bit of makeup. You have to go a bit higher with your blush to try and give the idea that it's all not dropping. Gravity's not coming.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'll tell you what else I like. I like do you know the Charlotte Tilbury, the flawless filter.
Love it.
Oh, it's amazing.
I do like that.
Like it gives you like a proper dewy glow, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's your product for this week?
Oh no, I remembered. I've forgotten a minute. I'm going to talk about an app. So I haven't got it to show you, but it is on my phone. I was going to talk about the Fit app, FIIT.
I think I've heard of this.
Just to remind you, we do not get paid for any of this stuff, but we just like it. So I've had this for a few years, actually, probably quite a few years. So it's an app I pay, I don't know how much it is, 120 quid or something a year.
That's not bad.
And my husband and I do it. Sometimes the kids do it. It's got yoga, Pilates, any kind of HIIT training, weight training, bike stuff, all sorts of stuff. And there's like 10 minutes ones, 20, half an hour, 45 minutes. And I love it because I do not have time to kind of go to the gym as much as I want. You can just do it in your own time in your own lounge. And so it's really brilliant. You can get to know some of the instructors. I feel like I know them, even though they're like, that sounds like I'm a psycho. I'm like, oh, here she is. Oh, she's a funny good joke. But I often only do 10 minutes, actually.
Do you?
And because a lot of people think that you need to do, there's no point if you haven't got long. But actually 10 minutes of doing something can be amazing.
Well, it's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously yoga has got it's like moving meditation. I love Pilates. I think anyone who has ever had any back problems should all be doing Pilates. In fact, I think if we all did Pilates, we wouldn't get back problems.
Wow.
So it's just really doable.
What's the difference between Pilates and yoga?
So yoga is obviously based on kind of ancient meditative almost practice and moving, but nowadays it helps you build strength in your muscles. You kind of get long, lean muscles and flexibility. Pilates was started by someone called Joseph Pilates. I didn't know you were going to ask me this, so it's good about having a bit of knowledge. And I remember one quote he said was, "You'll only ever be as young as your spine is flexible." I think, or something. Wow. So it's about a lot of that core strength.
Yeah, I love that.
But I often find Pilates is a bit more of a workout.
Oh, I quite like that. So I did what they called. I want to start doing. There's a place near us actually that does it. It's do you know not the trapeze? Do you know when you climb up on the ropes and then you swing down on the rope? What's it called? Is it the trapeze?
No,
you do it, and then like the
acrobatic-y type of thing.
Yeah, but I really want to start adults acrobatic because I love. So I used to do yoga years ago. Well, say years ago, probably about 4 years ago, and I really got into it, and then I've just got out of it.
Yeah.
But I love that feeling of being flexible.
Yeah.
And I love it. Do you know when you can like touch it? Well, I can still touch my toes actually, but I love being flexible. But when we went on holiday and we saw these girls doing these like just incredible stuff, and that the spines were so flexible. So I want to learn how to do it.
Yeah, I think it's so good for you. Like, and for anyone because I talk to patients all the time about doing yoga and trying to get Yorkshire men to think about doing yoga and Pilates.
That's easy. Yeah.
But, even on YouTube, if you don't want to pay for a Fit app, there's loads of free stuff on YouTube, especially for like beginners, even chair exercises. So I'm talking about it with my grandma because, you can start from somewhere and do something.
Yeah.
But being flexible is the most important thing. Like when, how old people kind of like are bent over and have a shuffly gait.
Yeah.
That's because your hip flexors shrink as you get older because you're not stretching them. So like you can literally avoid the old kind of posture by keeping really flexible. So as well, and strength training is so important.
Well, anyone over 30 should really be muscle training because what you do now will literally see you like when you're 60s, your 70s, your 80s.
Yeah. We're starting to lose muscle mass, especially after 50. It's called sarcopenia. So we lose muscle mass fast. So you do need to do resistance training and flexibility training. That's why having something like the Fit app is good because you can tick all the boxes, or just even if you're just doing little bits, and make it work in your life. Because what people also try and do is like, right, I'm going to join a gym in January. This is my New Year's resolution. I'll go 4 times a week, yada, yada. And then they don't. So it has to be something that fits with your life and you stick to.
So do you want me to tell you as well from kind of a belief coding perspective? So a lot of the time when we go through cycles, you'll find that we'll go through cycles and then we'll avoid, so with the gym, for example, people, they'll join in January, then they'll join every January, then they might not join for a few years, then they'll join again, then they might not join for a few more years after that. So what happens? Sometimes we will avoid doing something if it is all about the way we look rather than about the way we feel, because then we'll go into failure mode and then we avoid doing it altogether to avoid failure.
Yeah.
Fact of the day.
Well, that is very interesting. Brilliant. Well, that is episode 10. So 10 episodes in the can. We will be in touch. So watch this space to find out about the next series of The With the Science in You. Let us know what topics you want us to cover, what you think about what we've talked about today. Comment wherever you're watching or listening. Let us know what you think. And make sure you share it.
Adios.
Goodbye.